Welcome back to the second season of Who's That Leader in the Mirror with Sharon Blanchard, your host. That's me. This time around, we're going to look at leadership through the lens of Christian faith, through conversations with Mother Nancy, or Little Mama, as we call her. Across the 6-part series, we explore how Christian principles align with core corporate leadership values and what it means to lead by the example of Jesus himself. Join us as we uncover powerful, practical insights for today's leaders, grounded in timeless truth. I hope you'll join us. Hello and welcome back. I don't know why I start laughing every time. I feel like we start and we're really joyful, and then we get really serious. Yeah. But right, there is joy in leadership. Hello, folks, and welcome back. We've got Mother Nancy, Little Mama, with us, and I jumped right in before even going there. But there is leadership, joyful leadership, yes, right? And when
it should be joyful.
It should be joyful. And when we think about, me and my wee little ice cream parlor, and I don't know, I think I was telling you one day this Steve Jobs thing says something, and I'll get it wrong because I'm really bad with, those, my Sharonisms, I guess they call them in my family. But it's like, if you want to be a leader, go sell ice cream. And I'm like, I get so offended by that because it's like, selling is selling, right? Yeah. And, there's challenges in everything. But the one thing is, in my own business, is in both of my things that I do here in New Zealand, in my consulting and in my sweet Muse ice cream parlor, is joy. And that can only come from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Right? Because in those moments when I want to go, I don't care if your life is dependent on what ice cream you choose today. But it is, because for that person, it might be.
It might be, yeah.
And so it's seeing Jesus in everyone.
And ice cream makes everybody happy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? I've only had one or two in the last 8 years that, a little cranky. But even then, I'm like, I'm going to pray for you. And even, I might not say that out loud, but I'm like, to the team, I'm like, we're going to pray for that person, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, back to you. Welcome back. What an aside. Right here, I'm going, how are we going to, right? We got to fill the time.
We're not going to have any problem with that.
We won't have any time with that.
No.
So there is joy in leadership. Right?
Is.
There's joy, joy. If we don't have joy, what do we have?
Yeah. Well, and it's that understanding of what joy is, right? Joy is not caused by our external circumstances, but our internal self-awareness and well-being, I think, when we know who we are and who we are striving to be, and doing that surrounded and equipped by God's love, right? There's just joy in that.
Yeah.
And that when we see leadership as a way to empower others to discover that too, right? That's there's a lot of joy in watching others succeed and be who they are supposed to be.
Yeah,
I find that so fulfilling.
Tell me, a little bit about your conceptualization of leadership. Like, what is leadership to you?
For me, leadership is about helping everyone be who they are supposed to be, right? We all have this internal person, who we are at the core of our being. As a person of faith, I believe who we are at that core is created in the image of God, and that we are to strive to love as God loves, as best we can in our human limits, with God's help. And from that place, we are all equipped and enabled to be that person. And my role as a leader is to help you discover that and to find that in you, and do all that I can to support and enable you to be the best you can be. And I can only do that as a leader when I'm working at being the best me I can be.
And what does that look like?
It looks like a lot of hard internal work, right? Where we have to, our outer behaviors from the moment we're born, right? I believe are our ways of getting our inner needs met. And what are our core internal needs? And those may be slightly different for every person, right? That what is it what are you trying to fulfill inside by your outer behaviors? The older we get, right, the more those behaviors just become layers and layers. There is a Catholic priest and speaker, Father Richard Rohr, who calls that our true self and our false self. And I've got to help people get to their true self, who God created us to be. So it's hard work. It's being honest with ourselves and each other. It's finding those trusted people that we can share with and say, I'm really struggling with this inside, with this emotion or this person or this situation. And I want to be able to see it through the lens of the love of Jesus, and learn to respond instead of always react. And so it's, leadership involves not just our outward tasks and doings, but our inner self and that hard internal work. It's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And we're human, right? We make mistakes. Oh my gosh, every day, right? I've made so many mistakes in my leadership journey, right? And on that path to trying to, be that better version of who I am in all things. Constant struggle and making mistakes, and it's through those that we get our glean the greatest opportunities for learning about ourselves. But in that respect, is there a situation or a challenge you might want to share with us, where maybe you weren't I don't know, you or someone wasn't didn't enact a leadership approach that you subscribed to or that you wanted to subscribe to yourself, and maybe something we can learn from that experience?
Yeah. I think in general, right? So before I became a priest in my life in the corporate world, it was rare to find that leader, to have a leader that worked at equipping all of us to be the best. It seemed that the predominant culture was, right, how do we all work to make the leader be the best? Right? And I think it's more backwards. When I was on teams where we truly collaborated and not just cooperated, you just sensed it, right? You knew that this whole team was about working together for the greater good of everyone. We saw each other as humans and not as cogs in a wheel to get whatever product done.
Was it the leader that enabled that? Like whoever was in charge of that team? So
in the situation I'm thinking of in my head, it wasn't. It was the team. It was like our second in command. He would have been. Right?
I like how you said the one I'm thinking about in my head. So is there a way that you think of outside of your head?
I do. I think with my heart a lot.
Right.
So when I say thinking with my head,
thank you for
and right, to distinguish between am I just thinking logically,
which is so important,
am I letting myself be my whole
identifying
humanness.
That's right. So important.
It is,
right?
That we understand ourselves that way,
and the difference. Like, am I thinking with my head or am I thinking with my heart?
Yeah.
With you talked a little bit earlier today or yesterday about the flash. Maybe that was earlier.
Yeah.
I've got the
right.
Not the greatest memory here. I call myself Dory the fish. From Finding
Nemo. Remember 2 seconds.
Yeah. That's me. Sorry.
It's okay. No. We get there.
Right. So back to that differentiation.
So our true boss, the one who was in charge of everything.
You mean God?
No, well, in this corporate situation.
Sorry, I'm just being
thinking
obnoxious.
I know. Yeah. She just wanted her life easy. And she wanted all of us to do our work so that her life could be easy. And we were producing the right things and getting everything done. And as a team, there were 5 of us, and one of the team members was not cooperative or collaborative, but the other 4 of us really were, and we would put ourselves in a room and just start talking together and making notes on the whiteboard back before laptops and stuff, and we would produce some great stuff. And it was all about cheering each other on in a way too, that going, you're the best at this, help us put this part in place, and oh, you can do this well, that's great, right? And it was encouraging and helping us all, and not false cheerleading, but truly appreciating that the four of us made this great great part of the company, right? That we produced what we were producing really, really well. And then having the conversations of, acknowledging that and just really supporting each other. And that was great and wonderful. And I learned so much about leadership from, like I said, the second in command. And he totally operated that way. It was like, we are a collaborative. Yeah. Together we make one. Right?
So I shared with you a book and a chapter I wrote in that book about leaderless management. And I struggled forever on the topic, on what it was, like what is leaderless management. And I was so the book is there's chapters pro, against, neutral. And I was kind of like that, no, I think you need a leader, right?
I agree.
And what you've just described is kind of a pro in the sense of the support of, we can do it without the leader. Like you guys got on, but tell me about, because I know from our conversation, tell me about, is that a consistent approach? And if it's not, why?
I don't think it's consistent in the world. I think so much we have...
Or can it be consistently successful?
I think it can be.
What I meant
yes. It absolutely can be.
Yeah.
Because in that team, right, we did what we were supposed to do. And we made the boss look great all the time.
Yeah.
But that's not the reason we were doing it. We were doing it because we enjoyed what we did and we're proud of the work we produced as a group.
But could you have done it without the leader?
Without the
person?
I don't think so. Yeah. No, he created that, right? And when I talk about leadership, I distinguish authority, and I know we're on audio only here, but I always want to put air quotes on that because when we think of a negative view of authority versus authority structures, right? We needed an authority structure in corporate world. I think
that fine line of
right, that we needed to know, right? If there was disagreement, because just because you're all working well together and can collaborate doesn't mean there won't be disagreement.
Yeah,
that's just part of who we are as humans, right?
Constructive dialogue.
We needed someone to then step in and say, okay, right, here's a decision that's going to satisfy everyone to the best of our ability, right? Yeah. And so we needed that authority structure. We needed him to be able to step into that role when it was necessary.
Yeah.
But he didn't, right? And this is where my faith comes into it. There's a phrase that Jesus says, right? That the Gentiles, meaning the non-believers, lord authority over others, but not so with you, Jesus tells his followers, right? This leader never lorded it over us, never held it over our head and said, I'm in charge and you have to follow me, right? And do what I say. We appreciated and respected him and knew that he would do what was best for all of us. And so I think that's where the line is different, whether we think of authority as positive or negative.
Yeah.
That they're not holding it over our heads or lording it over us. And so, but equipping and enabling those that you lead to be the best they can be.
It's funny because when you just put on my heart, what so many of us, the perception of God is in heaven with this big, finger, right?
I call it the smite button.
Right? Like, what are you doing down there, right? And it's so, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you talked about it before, and I talk about it a lot in my research, destructive leadership, but we won't get into that too much today. But you described that so perfectly because the sense of, right? When you have a healthy environment and when you have someone who is enabling and empowering and leading their team. Some people call me a Pollyanna, right? But but that's always what I'm striving. That's what if you're not going for the gold, what are you going to have?
Right.
What are you going for? And if you don't do that with a joyful, hopeful heart, then what's the purpose?
What's the point?
What's the alternative? That, I keep saying that's going to be the name of my next book. Somebody's
Yeah.
probably already going to write it, but it's like, what's the alternative? If that's not the goalpost, right? And that's where you're going. Yeah.
And that's where, right? So I come back to, how does my faith equip me as a leader, right? And, you go back, when you were talking about God with the shaking finger, right? If we go back to the Christian and Jewish origin stories of creation, right? What we have in our holy scriptures, right? God, from the very beginning, worked with human beings, right? He made us and put us on this earth to work with. And gave us, right, reason and skill and to lead well. And I think we have to keep going back to that it's not, we weren't put on this earth to dominate, but to be with each other. In the ultimate goal is what I call communion, right? But we are just with each other as God wants to be with us. God's greatest desire is to be in that intimate relationship with all of his beautiful children. So that's the framework of where we then say, okay, right, you are just as valuable and important as I am. One of us is not more than the other. And whatever our end goal is, whatever widget we're making in this job, right? How do we do that well and respect and honor each other as humans, with our own integrity and humility, right? That humility of knowing. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but knowing who you are. Right.
What you're capable of, what you're not.
Right.
And being okay with that.
Exactly.
You talked a little bit about cooperation versus collaboration.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I think I hear people using the word collaboration a lot when what they really mean is cooperation. And here's how I distinguish the two. So cooperation is saying, okay, we have this widget that we need to make. You do that part, I'll do this part, and then those two parts will fit together. And it's for the good of whatever our goal is. Right? But collaboration is a higher level of trust, and it's whole person working, right? Like, I want to know who you are, and trust that you are going to always bring your best that you are in the moment, which some days may be worse or less than other days, right? But we understand that in each other, and we have the greater good of all, right? Is this widget we're trying to produce good for all, the greater good, the big commonness of all humans, and that so it's just a higher level of trust and a higher level of I don't want to really use the word results, but that's what started to come out of my mouth, right? So whatever it is we're trying to achieve, whether it be making something or writing something or recording a podcast, right?
Well, regardless in the secular or world or not, we're results driven in the sense of, right?
In a positive
in
way.
the corporate sense, it's, where it's all about KPIs and benchmarks, and that's all positive and good because we're trying to work for the better, right? In whatever. Right? But if you've got, one of the things I always say, building trust and relationship as an anchor, how you do that, if you can do that. Right? You've already talked about it. That's the success to a collaborative, empowered, enabled team. But, again, ensuring, that you can do that. How do you do it?
You've got to be, as the leader, right, in doing your own work, to be the best person you can be, right? Not just, right, before my priesthood, right, as a technical writer, I could be the best technical writer in the room, but be really terrible to the people around me, right? So, but to be being the best person
Yeah.
is more important
Yeah.
on the team, that we are all there together.
Mm.
In my role as a leader in a parish, right, what that looks like is to be curious and about my parishioners and help them in all that I do, right? We have goals and things that we achieve, right? My parish does a fall festival every year, and there's a whole lot of work that goes into that, and everything has to be lined up, and we have to have the right vendors and food trucks and advertising and all that, and it's and we can get lost in just getting those tasks done. And so one of my primary goals is I know who's good at those tasks and let them do it, and then I keep bringing them back together, that we are right, we're people in this, and we need to ensure that everybody is living into the best they can be, and help form them that way.
Yeah. Because really, that at the end of the day as well, you're probably, and not to put words in your mouth, but one of your responsibilities, prime responsibilities, is building, right? The lay people to build the church, right, and to empower them to, right? Because without that sleeping giant, right, where will our churches be? Because there won't be enough leaders, and so building leadership capacity,
the lay leadership capacity, is what huge. Will carry the church forward. And and in the Episcopal Church, in our catechism, I think I've shared this with you, right? When it asks who are the ministers of the church, the first group listed is the lay people, right? And I remind them of that all the time, right? You're the primary, right? I'm here to perform the sacraments and to be the leader, but I'm standing showing all of you how to follow Jesus well too, right? I'm not in front, I'm with.
It's that example of servant leadership, right?
Yeah.
And that letting go of the ego.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the key is knowing, being able to discern, is my ego making this choice or is my relationship with Jesus making this choice? And it's an ongoing discussion and conversation I have in my heart all the time. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. We've hit on so many things.
I know.
And I keep writing them down. So I have to stop doing that because I'm noticing you're looking over at my notepad. But listen, we're going to continue this chat. We're going to take a little break. And this has been great, in the sense of just, I feel a lot of just joy and hope through our conversation, right? Yeah. But I do want to get into some nitty-gritties next time. Sure. And so a couple of topics that I think we'll be sharing with folks is, want to talk about women as leaders in the church and the challenge of that, but not just, for me as a young woman and as a leader working in the university sector for 30 odd years, and the challenges for that in the sense of leadership. And then really want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the world right now with leadership and destructive leadership, and the core of that, and the flipped side of how we come out from there. So, thanks. Yay, and tune in.